Hey everyone, Walsh here from Thin Line Defense, and today I'm coming to you with a review of the Holosun 503G Red Dot and the HM3X 3x magnifier. Now you may be asking yourself, why in the world, in the era of low power variable optics, are you doing a review of red dots and magnifiers? I'm going to show you, and I will even go so far as to say I think this is the best combination of optics inside of 200 yards that you can get, period. So before we get into that review though, I want to say thanks to all of those Patreon supporters. This channel isn't monetized in any way, and you're what makes these reviews possible. I also want to say big thanks to all those individuals who have liked, commented, and subscribed on all of our videos. You really make this fun for me, and you make me want to do more of it, so big thanks to you. Please comment more, please include more, and I like having that dialogue with you. So the first thing I want to start with is going into each of the individual optics and going through the details of each one of them. Then I want you to realize that they become more than the sum of their parts once they're joined together. If this magnifier was used with a different red dot, it wouldn't be as effective. Similarly, I guess this red dot could be used with a different magnifier, but due to the low eye relief, it makes it perfect for this situation. I love the mount, I love how it sits, I love how it all works together. So let's get into it. I'm going to show you how all those pieces work and then the magic that happens once you piece them all together. First, let's start with the Holosun 503G Red Dot. This particular model is special because it does not feature a simple red dot, but instead uses a fantastic ACSS reticle. The 503G ACSS is made by Holosun, but is available exclusively through Primary Arms. Primary Arms is the inventory of the highly successful ACSS reticles, including the ACSS CQB in this model. I would be a bit disingenuous if I showed you an unboxing video, as I've had this set up on my gun for over a year, but it may still be useful to show you what comes in the box. They include all of the instructions and information you may need, along with the ACSS ranging card. This is part of the magic sauce, so let's do this in just a moment. Included in the box are two mounts, a low mount and a 1/3 co-witness mount. This is important because there's not an included mount for absolute co-witness. I personally don't prefer absolute co-witness. I think there's too much junk in your view, but there's two different camps on this and they both seem to think that either one is wrong, so do whatever you like. Obviously, the magnifier we're going to talk about later is not going to work on a low mount, so if you purchase just the 503G ACSS, you'll need to use the 1/3 co-witness mount. It also includes a nifty cleaning cloth and a Torx wrench to remove the attached riser and to tighten it down to the Picatinny mount. Or did it come with this tool? I don't know. Either way, you tighten it down and you don't need either of these anymore. Finally, we have the optic itself, shown here mounted on my 223 wylde Aero precision rifle on the 1/3 co-witness mount. This is a fully aluminum unit and is sturdy and well built. The unit uses a standard 2032 battery that can be easily accessed without removing the optic from the rifle. Simply turn the cap counterclockwise to release and then replace the battery when required. I always put these things in backwards, so make sure you pay attention. The battery is said to have a lifetime of 10,000 hours. To switch on the sight, you can press and release either the plus or the minus button on the sight. The optic is equipped with a shake to wake, which is absolutely awesome. I don't think in this day and age I would recommend any red dots that didn't have some sort of shake to wake. To think to be in some sort of emergency or extreme heightened level of panic, but then suddenly I need to remember to turn on my red dot? Yeah, that's just not realistic. Keep it as simple as possible. Use shake to wake. Now, you can turn the unit off by pressing both the plus and minus sign and then releasing. If this is on like a Safe Queen, I guess that's a good idea. I don't know, because I use all my guns. Oh, the sleep mode. So after 10 minutes of inactivity, meaning it doesn't sense any movement, the reticle turns itself off. When any motion is then detected, the sight turns back on. It even has a memory setting, so it'll wake up to the last brightness setting, which is awesome when you're fiddling with it in the daytime and got it out at night to LARP around the basement and completely blind yourself. To zero your rifle, you must remove the protective caps on the side and top of the optic, and the caps themselves can be used to make adjustments. The windage knob is on the right, and the elevation knob is located on the top, same as most optics. If you turn the elevation knob clockwise, you'll raise the dot, counterclockwise, and you lower the dot. Similarly for the windage, clockwise pushes the dot to the right, and counterclockwise pushes the dot to the left. There are also markings on the inside of the cap in case you forget. which I always do. Each click moves the dot in 0.5 MOA increments. Comment below if you have a good way to do your zero. I have a neat way to do it in 3 shots, but I want to hear how you do it. So let me know and then I'll share the neat way that I have. The caps make adjusting the zero a pretty fun pain in the ass. It's not horrible, but it doesn't work great. Thankfully, you just set the zero and then put the caps back on. I set my zero a year ago and the rifle has seen some accidental beatings and the zero is always perfect. Finally, we've reached the ACSS portion. This is where the magic is, but the reticle by itself is really only half the magic. Let me show you why. But first, let's start looking at the ACSS. The ACSS reticle actually can be in 2 different configurations. The first one being CQB mode, which includes a large horseshoe for quick target acquisition and shotgun pattern estimation. You can then hold down the minus button for 5 seconds and change the optic to the medium range mode that removes the horseshoe to save yourself some battery. Now I have to say, with the CQB mode, I find myself to be significantly faster at short range in acquiring a target. Now, let's take a little closer look at the reticle and the information card mentioned earlier. For the purposes of my explanation, I'm going to use the 5.56 bullet compensation, but there are other bullet compensations listed for different calibers, such as 308, 300 blackout, super and subsonic, 22 long rifle, 7.62, and 9mm. By using the 5.56 reference, the optic chevron gives you a target indication from 1 to 300 yards by shooting at the tip of the chevron for 100 and the lower edge of it for 300. Then there are 3 additional dots that mark your 400, 500, and 600 yard holds. Now, sometimes people like to talk about 50, 200 0 and 25, 300 0, but with the ACSS, you need to zero at 100 yards. The reticle's bullet drop measurements will be all off if you set the zero to anything other than 100, and that goes for all calibers. The reticle's size also offers you a method to use the reticle itself to do vertical ranging of a standard height. The reticle width also matches the 18-inch center mass of a target when using the outside of the chevron, and the inside of the chevron represents an 18-inch center mass target at 400 yards. Now, anyone who has ever shot a precision rifle will tell you that the distance is tricky, but wind is the true equalizer. The chevron edge represents a 5-mile-per-hour wind, but that's all it really gives you. The wind adjustment also increases as the distance increases, but the optic doesn't really have a good way of showing you that visually. So that's pretty neat, right? Well, not really. The optic by itself is really just a big circle with a lot of goo in the middle. Aim the middle goo at stuff and you're going to be super accurate. But if you think you're going to lay prone and pop someone who just stole your McJagger records at 600 yards, it's not going to happen. The dots just blend together too much. So we need something else. So let's look at that HM3X magnifier. Similar to the optic, I mounted this on the gun quite some time ago. I actually had the Vortex, not the Mini, magnifier, but the Holosun has an eye relief of 2.75 inches and the Vortex was 2.2 inches. A half inch doesn't seem like much, but it's a half inch less than my rail, so I got room for my backup iron sights. Inside the box, you have the instructions, 2 sets of screws. Okay, so these are the short screws. It also includes the long screws that are currently installed. Now, as we mentioned with the 503G, the mount is a 1/3 co-witness. So the HM3X without the spacer is absolute co-witness, and with the spacer is 1/3 co-witness. So, to work with the 503G, we need the spacer and the long screws. As you notice, mine flips the correct way, but yours may go opposite from mine. You can remove the magnifier itself from the mount and flip it around for left hand or right hand orientation. Once you have the magnifier oriented correctly and the riser installed, you can use the quick disconnect to attach it to the rifle. There is a forward locking lever. Just apply forward pressure and then lock the lever. As you can see here, you have to leave a bit of space. The instructions say to leave 2 rail segments open, and if you leave the caps on, it's pretty obvious where it's designed to sit. To release the magnifier, push in the lever lock and then release the lever to free the magnifier. If you find it's too loose, you can use, is this what this tool's for? Anyway, you can use this to tighten the cross bolt and give it a better grip. Just make sure the QD lever is released prior to adjustment. You should be able to install and remove the magnifier with one hand. Alright, so we have the magic yet? Almost. We're almost there. Finally, let's adjust the diopter. This adjusts the focus so that the reticle is clear in the magnifier. Try to put a cap on or cover the end of the red dot with a piece of paper so you only focus on the red dot to get the diopter set correctly. It's all installed. Now what's the magic? We talked earlier about how the 503G ACSS is extremely fast in close quarters combat. So this combo gives you rapid engagement at close quarters with a completely removable option for additional range or target acquisition. The red dot can then be used rapidly at close range and then have the magnifier engaged to give you vision and holdovers out to 600 yards. Suddenly, the ACSS markings that were hard to read become amazingly useful. In moments, you can swap from a close combat-centric rifle to engaging targets at distance. But, and big but here, this is designed around my mission set. The mission set that I envision is I will be operating inside an urban environment, but I still want to be able to reach out if I want to give someone some long-range metal hugs and kisses. If the mission set was to engage targets over 200 yards regularly with very low or unlikely close quarters situations, this setup would not be ideal as you would want to use a low power variable optic. People like to ask the question of which optic is better than the other, but in reality it's a question of this or that. And this or that is designed by your mission and not by which one you prefer or looks better on Instagram. I hope this review is useful in understanding the features and the reticle of the 503G ACSS and the HM3X 3X magnifier. Now you can see why it's so useful inside of 200 yards. You can quickly engage targets and have a true 1x reticle, while then still being able to stretch it out to 600 yards and have all the proper markings if a long-range shot is needed. Thanks for watching, and please consider joining our Patreon page to support reviews like this in the future and for access to exclusive content. Take care.